all of the wedding guests, he shows to us that he is the one who fills our spiritual gas tanks. In those places where we feel that we need more, Jesus provides. And it occurred to me that this is a very hopeful image. If we see ourselves as empty jars, if today you see yourself as an empty jar, take heart. Be encouraged, because there is one who is with us who longs to fill our lives with the wine of his kingdom. There is one who wishes to pour himself in such fullness that every area of our life is sunk deep in his loving presence. Jesus is present in these times not just to stare at our emptiness, not to criticize, not to discard. He is there to help us be who and what we were created to be. People whose lives are filled with his. And in that filling, there is transformation. After all, the jars, they are filled with water, but the water is transformed into wine. And it's a fabulous image that we hold on to. An image of God embracing the ordinary stuff of life and transforming it into the richness of his kingdom through his presence. Now, it's odd to think that we are actually just a little bit before Lent. Lent is very early this year. And so just around, this time next month, we're going to be there. Some may remember that last year, my Lenten discipline was a little extreme. I decided to give up all beverages except for water. So I didn't drink milk, I didn't drink coffee, I didn't drink juice or tea or anything. I just drank water. But there is one caveat to that, and it was communion wine. I would only have water wherever I went except for communion. There I would have some wine. And that provided a very interesting dynamic, which captivated me as I went through the 40 days. And in my reflections that I tried to keep as I went through this, I wrote this: communion is proving a rich contrast. We live in a world of water, yet Jesus takes us to his kingdom of wine, where we enter beauty and abundance, color and smell. In partaking of wine, I see how the undefinable and infinite benefit of God's power comes into my life as I lay myself open before him. In grace he comes, not because I deserve it, an adequate vessel that I am, but he comes because he pours himself in faithfully. Jesus shows his glory because he shows himself to be the one who transforms our lives. The stuff of life, the ordinary matters that make up our days, the routine, the in, the out, they become the very place which is touched with his holiness, which his grace and his power. Just like we hold up the incarnation, in which human flesh is then crammed deep with the holiness of God, so what happens here too? Ordinary wine is transformed into all the holy things of God's power and God's kingdom. The everyday stuff become places where we have communion with God. And all of a sudden, in that, we live our lives and we realize that our days are spent walking in the presence of God, listening to God's voice, and feeling the Spirit of God. It is only through the voice and activity of Jesus that transformation happens. And it is only through the activity and voice of Jesus in our lives that transformation of our spiritual life happens, where we find that we are able to put down vices and struggles that so often plague us time and time again. Have you ever fought against something, and as hard as you try, whether it be bitterness or envy or a sharp tongue, and it constantly comes up and you resolve, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. And as hard as you try, it comes up yet again and yet again. It's because we need the transformation that comes through immersion in Jesus' presence. It's only transformation that he provides. where anger is transformed into forgiveness, where doubt gets transformed into peace, where hopelessness gets transformed into joy. And we are able to move away from destructive behaviors, habits of thought or action that continually eat away at us. So, just like you can ask yourself, what are some areas that I need to be filled? We can ask ourselves, what are some areas where we need to be transformed? Where are some areas in my life where I need the rich, the powerful, the full-bodied presence of Jesus to shape me, to work in me, so that my day is lived in intimacy and faith? Are you running on empty? Or do you only feel half full? Or maybe you feel that, you know what, I'm pretty good, but I'm not really filled to the brim. Is there a place where you need transformation? Does self-criticism, does doubt, guilt, does a feeling of unforgiveness, anger, judgment, lust, envy, or something else always seem to get the best of you? Where do you need to be transformed? Mary says to the servants, do whatever he tells you, which is a wonderful expression of how we are called to open our lives to Jesus through his Spirit here and now. Saying, Lord, however you want to fill, however you want to move, I accept it. When we focus on ourselves, we can never get the full richness that we long for. When we focus on ourselves, on what we do or what we're not doing, we can never get the full transformation that we want, because ultimately we are cracked vessels. We are stone jars. And that's just the way it is. We need Jesus to come in. Jesus to fill us. Jesus to transform us. The water becoming wine is an illustration that he is the only one who can do that for us. So let us open our lives and accept him who pours himself in love, in grace, and in power.